and welcome back to another episode of the Change Officer podcast here at STEP Conference special series. And in this episode with me, Elie, founder and CEO of Right Farm. Thank you for coming, man.
Thank you for having me, Vuk. It's a pleasure.
I've been trying to get you on the show for a while, but you're not responding to my messages, man.
Yeah, right. I'm super responsive on all platforms.
All right, so whoever wants to get in touch with Elie, you heard the man. You can reach out to him on LinkedIn or any other platform.
Absolutely.
All right. I want to talk Right Farm first. Introduce us to Right Farm, and then also to your decision to go for it in the first place. Because there is a change happening. There is a change that is opening new opportunities. You saw it, you went for it. Tell us a bit more about that, man.
Absolutely. So thank you for the intro. Look, we were talking offline, so we were saying that such a topic, especially in the ecosystem, makes a lot of sense, and people are always trying to find challenges or gaps that need to be addressed, right? And coming up with innovative ideas to solve them, and that's what we try to do at Right Farm when it comes to agriculture, right? So we're a technology company first, and we connect suppliers of fresh produce and food in general to customers and particularly businesses. So we've realized that there's a big gap when it comes to HoReCa, so hotels, restaurants, catering companies, in the way they procure food and the way that service is handled.
All right.
Right. And so two key pillars here that we're trying to address to solve this. One is technology, and two is data, and we can expand on those if you like.
Let's do that. Before that, how did you decide agriculture? How did you went down that path?
Sure. So one, it's a passion for me. So
okay.
I've seen it with my grandparents and with my grandma in particular. So
all right.
It's something I'm passionate about, and it's a big thing right now, right? You look at everything that's going on with the advent of technology in the space, and it's something that's very archaic and it's very ripe for disruption right now. So it's exciting, and what better to work with than with food, right?
No, that's true. I mean, in the sea of growing, fintech startups, especially fintechs, having something like this sounds quite interesting. At the end of the day, you get food on the table, so that's quite impactful.
Absolutely.
Thing to do. So let's unpack Right Farm now and the problem that you are solving. Where does the problem arise, and what you do to solve it?
Absolutely. So I think there are two major problems when it comes to our customers and that segment of the market, which is the food service outlets. One is getting a consistent and reliable supply and what you expect, right? So I'll give you a very quick example.
Sure.
You as an end consumer, when you're ordering food to your house, fresh produce, let's say, right? And you order some avocados. You don't really care what size, what level of ripeness it is. As long as it's a good avocado that's not rotten, you can shove it aside and wait till it ripens, etc. When it's a restaurant, your daily operation depends on that product spec being exactly what you need for your cuisine or your dish, right? And any disruption in that, goes down the chain all the way to the end customer. So we realized that challenge exists, especially with SMEs, right? So across the whole entire segment when it comes to food service, but particularly with SMEs. And there's a host of reasons for that, right? One is MOQs when it comes to suppliers having those in place. Two, it's about them focusing on their core operation and not spending too much time or even thinking on the procurement side, right? Am I going to get the same mango or avocado that I got yesterday, or am I going to have to look harder for it, or is the price going to change, etc. So a host of challenges in that space, and that's why we're tackling food service outlets in particular on the demand side. And then you have other hot topics and issues as well when it comes to local produce, right?
Yeah.
So currently in the UAE, local produce is procured by a niche segment of the demand side in the restaurant space, right? So think of your premium restaurants, think of your hotels with a sustainability agenda or a CSR towards sustainability that are heavily invested in procuring local, right? But still, you have a lot of challenges when it comes to local. Seasonality is one, pricing is another. So the UAE imports 90% of its fresh produce, right? So
which is like a lot.
That's insane. but understandable. And imported produce is cheaper than local at most times, right? So
This doesn't make a lot of sense, right?
Absolutely.
Why is that the case?
I think it's a mix of regulation and just tech enablement in general, right? And you're seeing a lot of public and private sector initiatives when it comes to enabling these farms to make that jump from traditional farming in such a harsh environment to greenhouses, to net houses, to smart irrigation systems, to crop monitoring systems. So yeah, there's a lot of work to be done, but at least in the UAE, there's a big drive from the top, from the government, all the way down to the private sector, all the way down to things like waste management, right? So there are a few startups even here at STEP that are tackling waste management. I love it.
What happened in your life that made you say, okay, let's go for it? I want to drop what I had. You had a job before, or like how did you like made that leap and jumped into an opportunity and started a business?
So the pandemic is when it all started.
Pandemic is the reason for everything now. New
right?
babies, new startups.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I wasn't working in startups or high growth environments until I joined Kareem in 2017, early 2017, and that switched something on in my brain where I said, hey, this is where it's at, and this is where I want to be. And then I've entered into other startups as well, and at the pandemic I realized that I need to start doing things on my own, right?
Yeah, it's time.
And we launched an online platform that's super cool called loopcontacts.com, subscription for contact lenses. And then I was working on something in AgTech, Right Farm was formed.
Notice the opportunity. So Right Farm at this stage, and as I told you, I think you did a great job with communication and marketing, because I'm under the impression that Right Farm has been around for a while.
I love that.
But so kudos to the marketing team. At this stage, where are you at? Like, what's next for you, and what are you hoping to get out of the next this year and the coming couple of years?
Yeah, so we started back in July of 2021, and we had a POC phase, proof of concept phase, with a minimum viable product, and we were super successful. Results were excellent, and again, if you're addressing a real challenge that exists, you're gonna succeed, right? If you have the right team in place, if you know what you're solving.
How do you evaluate? Like, I'm sure that, like, if you look around, there's like hundreds of startups here.
Yeah.
Many of them believe they're solving the right challenge or the right problem. Most of them are not, or not in the right way, which is like just the reality, how it goes. But how did you approach that process of validating that the problem is big enough, worth solving, with the right solution, so that you can actually build a company around it?
Sure. So I think it's a bunch of variables. One is you benchmark, right? And although people hate to admit it, but there are other companies out there that start before you. And exactly. So one is benchmarking.
99% of cases. Yeah.
Absolutely. And there's no shame in that, right?
Of course.
And two is going out and speaking to people and understanding the issue and figuring out a way to solve it, right? So, and that's why there are phases to building a startup. That's why there's a proof of concept, and before that, you go and do your market research, and you talk to people and understand.
How much time did you spend in collecting the feedback, talking to people before you enrolled your MVP?
About a bit more than a quarter of a year.
Continuously just collecting feedback.
Absolutely. So the way Right Farm is set up, we're an aggregated marketplace. So we have two sides, supply and demand, and we had to speak to both. And believe it or not, in that phase you pivot as well, and your perception of what the business model is can pivot.
How much did it change the initial idea to what Right Farm is now?
I'll give you an example. So first we thought, let's focus on local produce, right, and local farming. But then we realized that the customer segment that we were addressing is not interested in you just serving them local produce, right? So that was a pivot. And then really zoning in on the demand side and what customer segment to address in our market here. So I'll give you an example. In Egypt, there are multiple segments that Right Farm's model can cater to on the demand side. However, in the UAE, it's very strictly on HoReCa, because that's where the real challenge is, right? B2C is not a challenge. There are many players out there that do this. Retail is its own beast, and there's no, absolutely. So, yeah.
All right, switching gears, we were talking about, what's happened so far. Going forward, moving forward, then as we're introducing the change officer as the show that will try to answer this question of what's the change ahead. In your perspective, from your experience so far, I'm sure you're sitting, thinking, okay, what's the next thing? What is going to change in the future? Because if we can predict that change, that's probably the best we can do for business. We can act now, and then when the change happens, we are ready for it.
Yeah.
What do you think is the big change that is coming that will open up those great new opportunities?
That's a great question. Look, there's a lot on my mind, I can say, but if I was to focus on a couple of things, one would be data and access to data in the space, in the agri-space.
Agriculture.
Absolutely. And two is tackling issues like food waste.
Okay.
Right? So when it comes to data, that's something that's lacking on both supply and demand side, right? Farms don't know what to grow, when, and for whom, right?
What level of technology usage is there? Farms, how advanced are they technologically? They are already...
I mean, here it's picking up, right? And there's public sector and a bit less private sector excitement about things like organic farming, hydroponic, vertical farming, etc. But it's still a long way. And even when it comes to vertical farming, the technology is still nascent, and there's a lot more room to sort of grow different varieties, etc. So
data in general is one, leveraging data.
I think that's a core focus, at least for us at Right Farm, not only for us internally, but for us to give back on insights and data to both sides of the marketplace. For farms to understand what to grow, when, what the demand is like, what that segment of the market requires in terms of product specs, and growing and harvesting accordingly. And on the opposite side, working with the restaurants on minimizing waste via predictive forecasting, demand planning, etc.
Waste management is huge, right?
Yeah. It's something we're super passionate about, and because I think the number is, at least in the UAE, we waste as an individual person around 240 kilograms of food a year.
Which
so you
is
can imagine,
record-breaking, almost at the top.
It's crazy.
Are we on the top? Are we the first? Are we the first in the world in this as well?
Maybe.
Like with Burj Khalifa and
maybe. Yeah.
Oh my God.
But and that's an individual person. So imagine a restaurant, and then, there are a lot of SME restaurants that have no storage place, but then their suppliers require them to have an MOQ, or minimum order quantity, for them to deliver to them, right? And so you end up wasting that, and with data and with these insights, you can start understanding what your patterns are of ordering, what days you should order what, and things of that sort. So, and look, there are plenty of startups even here out there that are doing waste management, and we're partnering with a few on developing waste management strategies for the HoReCa sector, right? And it can go so far as for you to contribute to the circular economy, right?
Yeah.
So closing that loop, using that food waste to compost or process it to byproducts, and then giving it back to the farms, right? To feed into the land. And so
I think that space is big. If I were to ask you, if you were given the role of the chief change officer in the region, what would be on the top of the agenda for you to change?
When it comes to agri,
when it comes to whatever you think is worth addressing, you are given the role. You're the chief change officer of the region now. Most likely is going to come from the agri side because of your experience. Yeah. What would be the first thing, the problem that you will tackle and change?
I think I'd change the way we eat, because it all boils down to the end user, right? And I just remember the Tupac song where he says, "Let's change the way we eat, the way we live, the way we treat each other," right?
That's it.
But I think changing the way we eat, because you as a consumer dictate to the business that you're buying from what to serve you, right? And then that business is going to go back to the farmer and say, hey, we need these products, right? So I think I'd change the way we eat, especially in the region here.
And we are echoing this message with our audience. Elie, thanks so much for coming, man.
I really appreciate it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. It was very informative for me. I'm not familiar with the space, so we have to talk more. I want to educate myself, and all of you out there who are listening and watching this episode. I do hope that we manage to spark some more thinking about this whole space. If you're about to start the business, maybe you can look into it. If you're already in the business, pay attention to this space is growing, and keep an eye on the right farm.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Don't forget us when you become a unicorn, all right?
I won't. I don't forget good people.
Thanks, Elie, for coming.
I appreciate it.